Now live. Mic check. Ha ha ha. Looks like it's functioning. All the lights are lighting and things are thinging. Cool. Get my hat on straight. New Chuck shirt. Went and saw Chuck over in Gainesville. Longtime follower of the page, great musician. You guys can check out Chuck. Chuck Reagan. Awesome show, man. Shout out to Chuck. So, I even made notes. Got my notebook. Look out. You better watch out. So, today on Facebook, had a conversation with a guy named Charles. Welcome in, my friend. Welcome aboard, everyone. I kind of stagger around at the beginning till we get going here. Let some folks filter in for some questions. It goes better when we have questions. So if you got anything from Arkansas, what's up, my guy? Us having a conversation on Facebook today, a rare good conversation from Facebook today about how tournaments are hurting our biggest bass production. Big Malone. Oh, I've been doing more than once, Big Malone. I've gone 4 or 5 days now. I missed one day. I try to go every day, but you know how that is. Excuse me. Life happens. Sometimes you get held up other places. So anyway, I'm on Facebook, and I didn't write the gentleman's name down. He might not want me to say it anyway, so that's okay. And anyway, we were talking about delayed mortality. So we should definitely talk about delayed mortality, and then how it pertains to tournament fishing, because a lot of guys just tournament fish, right? They don't like to fish unless they're competing, and that's fine. I don't fish that way, but if you want to fish that way, that's cool. So I guess to start the whole thing, delayed mortality, what the heck is that? When you mishandle a bass, or any fish really, you'll make it sick. You won't necessarily kill it right then. And especially a bass. Bass are incredibly tough. Bass are too tough for their own good. Trout are a better game fish for cluing guys in as to what they can do and can't do, because trout die much easier if they're mishandled. So it's pretty easy to tell if you've been catching a bunch of trout and there's a bunch of dead trout down the river behind you that you're not doing your job properly, right? Bass are almost the opposite. It takes them a long time to die because they're so tough. So we live in a world where if they don't see it happening, the fish isn't dead at the ramp 5 minutes after the tournament, then that's not on them. That's not their fault. You know, the fish that we released the fish and it swam away. I can't tell you how many idiots have said to me, but it swam away. Yeah, of course it did, because it's going to take 2 weeks, 3 weeks for it to die the way you handled it. Or maybe it'll have a sprained jaw and can't eat, and then it's going to starve to death. It's not going to starve to death 5 minutes after the fishing tournament. And then on top of that, the bass is just much like when we were talking yesterday about how the trout die, right? The temperature rises in the spring, the trout get lethargic. That becomes easy prey for the bass, and the bass eat them. So you can stock a bajillion trout and you can expect them to die. In Georgia, when I stocked them for bass growth, they'll stay there all winter, but you don't see any dead trout floating in the spring when the temperatures warm up, because like I said, they've gotten lethargic, they've slowed way down, they became easy prey for a predator, and you don't see them float. Same thing applies in your bass tournament, right? you mishandled it, you oxygen stressed it, you didn't handle the fish properly. Yeah, it showed up it showed up breathing, it showed up flopping, it showed up on the weight scale moving around. So you got credit for not killing it. But when you put it back, yeah, it's dying in 2 weeks. And if you just want to, Jason Dotson talked about it on the podcast that we did here. Just go back and live, look at Jason. He's the number one biologist here in Florida. Hooking up. What's up? And 20%, we can just figure 20% of all the bass caught in a bass tournament die. And it's higher than that in the summer. It's closer to 40. Almost half of the fish they're bringing to the weigh-in are swimming away and dying within a week or two. And see, now I'm reading when I'm trying to talk. Sorry. What's up, Frank? Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if you tuned into the right place to get away from stupid people, bro. Don't know how smart I am. Anyway, talking about stupid people, tournament bass fishermen. Oh, sorry. That's mean. Sorry, guys. That's bad. It's just after they just pour so much disrespect on you for 3 decades, it's hard not to get some shots in every once in a while, right? So, yeah, I apologize for the shots, tournament bass guys. If you would pay a little more attention to proven science, it would be better. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a significant amount of mortality due to poor handling, due to not knowing how to tank fish, not knowing that you should only put 1 pound of fish per gallon. So they're riding around with 25 pounds of fish in a 20-gallon live well, clueless that those fish are suffocating in there. They're running, like put a plastic bag over your head and give yourself air every once in a while. It'd kind of be a similar feeling. There's just, or if you go up a mountain, you go up to where it's low oxygen, right? And then put yourself in a stressful situation, running or hiking or fighting for your life in a low oxygen environment. How how it's going to make you feel. What it's going to do for your health. It's going to put you in an extremely it's going to put your entire system in an extremely stressed situation. So yeah, no, 8 hours later, if you stress me out real bad in a low oxygen environment, am I going to be dead? No, probably not. But with the health problems I've been having, it might kill me in a few days, and it's really the same principles. So I made a post about it. It's like taking somebody to the hospital, like you got to carry somebody to emergency. But hold on, let me just kick your ass real quick in the parking lot before we go into the emergency room. I'm not going to give you any, life-threatening injuries. I'm not going to stab you uncontrollably, but I'm just going to drag you through the parking lot, kick you a little bit, punch you in the face. It's not going to kill you. You're just in a really stressed situation, and I'm just going to beat the crap out of you a little bit more in the parking lot before I take you to where you need to be. That's what I see when I watch tournament bass fishing. And for 30 years, I've tried to say, that's not good. And everybody laughs and points and calls me names. But as time goes by, the truth comes out, right? So when we're looking at 20 to 40% mortality on every tournament, and now you've got big high school tournaments, you've got college tournaments, you've got bass club tournaments, you've got professional tournaments, which the pros have gotten a lot better. It's not as bad. Like I go down to I watch the Elite Series comes down here to Palatka once a year, and I'll poke my head in for the content, and go talk with a few of the guys that I know down there that I've met through here. Yeah, that's right. It's almost hidden. And then on top of that, like the guy on Facebook today was talking about they had a tournament in like the Potomac River or wherever he is up there, and the tournament director on the score sheet turned in 20 dead fish were weighed for the tournament. But the DNR went behind them where they released them, and they found 100 dead ones. So they only correctly identified 20% of the fish that actually died. And then you got to consider they only found 100. And again, what if they died a week later, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, right? So the true mortality needs to be almost like a tagged thing, you know, where they can track those fish over a longer period of time on some kind of tagging system. And just like we talked about yesterday, depends on the tag. The tag can create a situation that's causing mortality too. So we have to trust the guys who know how to calculate this stuff. And that's, you know, guys like Steve, which Steve contacted me today, Steve Barton, Texas Pro Lake. And he has got, I don't want to talk about anything. I don't know what he wants me to talk about or not talk about at the moment. He's got a lot of cool stuff coming down the line here, and he's willing to come on and talk to us about it. And that will be September 4th. I believe that's a Thursday. We've got it penciled in right now for 8:00 p.m. And I'll have Steve on to talk about what he's got going on. And I'm really looking forward to that. I'm really glad he contacted me. It's kind of where I wanted this thing to go, where we would have like a guest or two from time to time to help break up the monotony of me running my yapper. Get some different perspectives, get some new experiences. Yes, hooking up. I agree, man. He's a good dude and he's very knowledgeable. He's very as a consultant, I can see kind of both sides. You know, from my perspective, I'm not actively a lake manager anymore. You know, I'm trying to drive the experience that I had on social media to get a little more passive income. I just can't deal with the heat. I can't work outside it that much anymore. And I'm not, you know, there's not that many fisheries to manage. The fisheries that I'm managing, I can do from right here. You know, as a consultant, I don't really have to travel to them. I can help the DIY guys and stuff like that with pictures and text messages, and it cuts back on their cost, you know, so I don't have to show up every single month, you know. And ultimately, I don't know. I thought this was necessary for fisheries management and for the future of pond management, so I can help guys like Garrett and Preston and all those guys that are fighting the same battles that I had to fight as a younger person trying to work in the field. And so, you know, this is my idea and how that I can try to help them and help our fish live healthier lives and combat the completely misinformed that it's very popular to be misinformed. As a matter of fact, I would be more popular if I misinformed people, right? If I didn't care, I could just tell people what they wanted to hear and make a lot more money here, be a lot more popular here. If you want to feed your ego and go that way with it, and I think we can think of a few people on the internet who do that. Using misinformation to their own gain. And I think much like what we're describing here with the tournament bass mortality, that they're going to use misinformation to their detriment eventually, because there's literally an army of guys like me. You know, I'm not a unique individual in any way. There's a bunch of dudes, there's a bunch of fisheries majors walking around, there's a bunch of biologists walking around that deserve a lot more respect than what they're getting. Yeah, exactly, Arkansas. And that's the way I'm going with it, and that's the way we got to go with it. It's don't it when you see one of those, when you see one of that's an important point right there. And it's a natural instinct to go onto the misinformation pages and argue with them and say you're wrong and here's all the facts. Don't do that. Turn it off. Okay, because these social media things are designed for that. That's only helping those guys. Okay, the more you go on, and they're designed to, it's like rage bait, right? When you're raging, look at how politics works. Look how many people, just how much time are they spending just raging on Facebook about politics? That makes somebody money. That's why they do it. Keeping everybody whipped up and mad is why they do it. Yeah, sure. And that's fine too, it's hard to use education as entertainment, right? Education is it's just difficult. It's a hard thing to do. I think that's why you probably haven't seen anybody trying to do what I'm doing. It's almost impossible, You can't you're not going to go very far trying to inform people with facts. You're going to need if people want to hear what they want to hear, and they want to be told that they're right. So there's a technique to all this, and I've been trying to, do my own research and look at like psychology. I'll watch some psychology guys, and here one thing that came across. I'm getting off the topic of mortality for a minute, but let's talk about this because this is interesting. One of the psychologists, I guess, or I don't know, psychotherapists or PhD level brain people who understand behavior that I watch. I don't remember his name, but he's come by a few times, usually in the context of like relationships or something like that, like men and women stuff. A lot of that gets a lot of views, so you'll see a lot of that. But he made a comment about, I guess, intellectual maturity. And when he did it, and it'll apply to what Frank's got, he's talking about Frank's at work and dealing with stupid people. Okay, just treat everyone. He basically said this. Everybody is about, most people anyway, are about 12 mentally. They get to about there, and that's where it caps out. So if you look at the world with that idea in mind, where you're not really an adult, don't give them credit for being an adult until they prove they're an adult, and just assume everybody is about 10 to 12 years old mentally. Everything around you starts making a lot more sense. Social media, especially. And I thought that was a really interesting perspective that he had, being as how he studies that kind of stuff, And it helps me in dealing with the public in any way that I have to deal with the public, work or here or wherever. You're dealing with a child, no matter how old they are. Up here, it's about a 12-year-old mentality, a spoiled 12-year-old mentality many times. So I just, think about when you were 12. Did you take direction that well? How good could you take critique? How well did you learn, or did you follow the group? Right? How many kids do stupid things because a group of kids did stupid things right alongside you, and you went right along with it when you were 12? It looks a lot like tournament bass fishing to me. While you're going right along lipping fish and boat flipping them and holding them out of the water too long and can't understand how to hold them in a tank, can't understand how to hold them in your hands, no matter despite he like anybody who knows anything about it trying to tell you that's really not how we do that. Yeah, you see what I'm saying, Arkansas? Yeah, it'll change your perspective on the world, and well, I hope it helps you too, bro, because it's helped me a lot the last few years. I saw that several years ago, you know, and I try not to go down and do the arguing and do that kind of I try to keep it up here, and try. Anybody can lose their patience, but every once in a while, I will lower the bar and go into one of my chats or somebody else's chat. I did it on Oliver's one time. Oliver Nye, shout out to Oliver. He's been a great help to the page, Big Bass Streams. I've been on his pod a few times. It was a great honor. And a few other places where I've made comments and people want to argue, I'll just go chop it up with them on that level because I know if I answer it in a way that if you communicate like an adult, you're not going to get through to them. So you just go bust them up because there's millions of them that ain't listening. So you got to go drag one or two of them once in a while. It seems to work, I don't want to hunt over that field all the time, and I'd surely like to move off of it and just be an adult. But every once in a while, unfortunately, I think it's necessary. I think it has a lot to do with why I've been able to climb, understanding these things, and I think that's helped my social media. Right. I hear you on that one, Arkansas. But I don't know, man. Nose is itching. Sometimes, I don't know, I got neurological stuff, probably from the chemicals I've been messing with. I swear I haven't been doing any powder, boys. It would kill me. Anyway, back to mortality. I see the mortality in the pond management too. I've seen it consistently. And that's what helped me be able to articulate and talk about the tournaments, because they drag the fish up on the bank. The kid keeps it out of the water too long. They handle it with dry hands in their ponds, and then you kind of see like a limit, and it's a limit of about 5-6 pounds. And you grow pretty decent fish up to about that weight class, and then it's like they disappear. So, well, we got them to 6. Why can't we get them to 8? Your fish handling sucks. You're catching them too much. You've got a limited supply of fish, and they're being handled too often. Any other questions? And well, no, that can't be it. The fish swam away. And I can't. If I had $1 for every time I've heard the fish swam away, and it's fine, wouldn't we have to do this? Be very, very rich. And unfortunately, that's just not true. I've seen it too much. I don't have to, like everybody, well, we need to do more studies. Okay, you can go do all the studies you want. I'm positive that's what's going on. It was kind of like the study they took. I don't know if you guys saw this, they tried to do electrofishing on some pond up north to eliminate the smallmouth bass population, a study over 20 years. And the only thing they did was make the smallmouth harvesting with electrofishing boats multiple times. I didn't even read all of it. I can't remember the details, but and the only thing they did was make the smallmouth population stronger, with the harvest. They didn't not eradicate it. And Again, well, it's a 20-year study, and everybody, everybody's oohing and on. I could have told you that. I could have saved you 20 years. You could have done a research project on something that I already didn't, I already knew it. So thank you for proving, hey, if I drop this comb, gravity will make it hit the ground. I already knew that too. Great job on your 20-year study. Can we start study? Can we advance to the point where we start studying stuff that we don't already know? Again, now they're going to do all these studies on tournament mortality. I already know it. Everybody else already know. The only people who don't know it are the ones with their ego in their ears. They're the only ones, but they're going to have to run a bunch of studies and do a bunch of more work and study the same thing over and over and over again. And maybe 100 years from now, those fishermen will listen, because these fishermen sure as hell are not. So that's what I see. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, there's a rant. What else we got on the list? Okay, tournaments. And throw anything up there you guys want to talk about. Oh, yeah, I wanted to make a correction. We were talking about a pond the other night, and I said the guy, it's 11 months in, and he had 3-pounders. I was wrong. Looked at my notes, went back in my data set, and they were not 3 pounds in 11 months. He caught 3 fish that day, 11 months after stocking. There was 15, 15 and a quarter, and 15 and a half inches at 11 months after stocking. And they went in at about 2 inches when I stocked them. And the 15-inch fish was 2 pounds. The 15 and a quarter was 2 and a quarter. And the 15 and a half was 2 and a half. Those were the exact measurements at the 11-month mark. And so I think I said 3 pounds, but they did get 3 pounds, of course, very shortly into the next growing season, but they did not achieve a 3-pound growth rate in 11 months. And I think that that's possible to, I think that's important to note. I misspoke. I apologize. And it's old brain rot. All right, Arkansas's got one coming through. Let's put it up there. If I had to guess, not sure how I quantify it. Well, I can guess. I'm good at that. Any studies? Catch, photo, release. Oh, dude. Yeah. Now, again, there would be a great study. There's a study I'd like to see. How much better would the mortality be? Right? And I can guarantee you that just the simple fact of not putting those fish in a tank and holding them hours in a tank is significantly increasing their survivability, right? Because they're getting back into the lake and they can go back. And yeah, I realize, like we say on here, we would like to see the fish returned back in 30 seconds. Well, it's probably going to take you a little longer than 30 seconds to do everything you need to do for the photograph for the fishing tournament. All right. And that's okay. I would also say to the kayak fishermen, get you a deep net so the fish you can like the picture that I used on, I don't know if you guys saw the black and white on my Instagram, but I've got a nice 9-pounder just rested in the net, just let it catch its breath in the net. But that's a pretty shallow net. And on those shallow nets, they can get their tail in the bottom. They can hop out on you. So if you get a little bit deeper net and you just put them down in the water while get your board, wet your board, get everything set up with the fish resting over here, right? In the water, breathing, recovering, getting that. Again, it's just like getting off a treadmill, go sprint on a treadmill for 30 seconds or a minute, and then hop off and put a plastic bag over your head. That's what you're doing to the fish. Same thing. They're exerting all their energy. They're sprinting hard, fighting. And then you're taking them out of the water. Okay. Well, give them a few minutes. Let him just rest. Let him catch his breath. let things simmer back down. And again, like lactic acid, let that get smoothed out. Let the oxygen levels come back. Let them, give them a little bit of time to recover. How much time to recover? I don't know. How much time do you need to recover? Play by those rules. How long can you hold your breath? If you just came off of a treadmill and got your head put underwater, how long would you last? It's pretty much the same thing. So I think you will see on a study like that a significant improvement in mortality, especially in the summertime, because summertime, just the heat just ratchets up because the heat lowers the water's affinity to hold oxygen. So the same water in the wintertime that holds 14 parts per million oxygen only holds 7 parts per million in the summer, just from the heat. It's half as much. So your wintertime tournaments or your cool weather tournaments are much safer for the fish because there's a much higher volume of oxygen into the water than there normally would be in the heat of the summer. Yeah, that's a good point, Arkansas. It's a big deal for the turn, and when you look at it, they're using it like advertising, or the weigh-in is like a social media deal, right? Where they're all coming back to weigh those fish in, and promoting themselves, the pictures, all that nonsense. And they just don't. I mean, again, at the Elite Series, they've got an entire company with compressed oxygen aeration, and they got the additives in the water, and they stand in line with their fish in the water. Hey, that's great, and I love seeing it. That's what they need to be doing, but they don't have that. I've seen the local bass tournaments. They don't have any of that crap. They're just standing there for 20 minutes with the fish in a bag. And those fish are dead. That's your 40% right there. You standing in the summertime with a fish in a bag. Yeah, that fish is dead. You might as well put it in a cooler and go make some fish tacos out of him. Yeah, no, I know, Arkansas. And the thing about it is, and that goes back to what we're talking about. Those guys know how to fix them too. But what they don't know how to do is fix them and keep making money. So it's just under the rug. Oh yeah. No, you're right, hooking up. They don't tell. They don't talk about it. You don't see any of it talked about, right? So let's look at the big picture, because that's what I said. We know the mortality is occurring, right? And we know the tournament fishermen probably aren't going anywhere. They're going to keep doing. The only thing we can hope to do is change their habits. But over the last 30 years or so, what have they been doing? They've been putting the biggest fish into a tank, confining it in a tank and hauling it. No different than if you were trying to stock it into if you're taking it from a fish hatchery to a lake to stock, and then returning it to the water. Again, it's the same process as hauling fish for profit for stocking, like I used to do to stock ponds. And the entire idea of hauling a fish in a tank is to get it from point A to point B into the other water alive, because that's what you're paid to do. Okay, so they've become a fish hauler. They're professional fish haulers at that point. And the hatchery guys will tell you, All right, well, if you're going to go from here and you're going to go to there, you're going to need this, 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 and you're going to need all these things. You're going to need salt in the water. You're going to need oxygen in the water. You're going to need to cool the water down. You're going to make sure you don't have to temperature shock them when you put them back. Like if your tank water is cooler, 10 degrees cooler than the lake water you put them in, you'll temperature shock them right there and kill them just with temperature. So if they're cooling their lives well down with ice, but they're not warming them back up before they put them in, those fish are dead. You ever see anybody talk about that? Nope. 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 You ever see anybody talk about, oh, you better not put more than 20 pounds of bass in your 20-gallon live well? I'm the only person I've ever seen say that. I said that on Alex Rudd podcast, and then everybody's like, oh, wow, that's great. I've never heard of that before. That's pathetic. 100 people, I've never even heard of that before. That's pathetic. Is it not, Arkansas? Look at it. Here, look at my guy. Look at my guy. He stocks fish for a living. You'd like to buy your fish from Arkansas and pond stockers, and when you put them in your pond and they swim off, you'd like for them to live, wouldn't you? Since you paid for them. Looks like my guy knows what he's talking about. Looks like that's a place that I'd like to buy some fish from one day if I needed them, because he knows what he's doing. So you got a bunch of clowns who don't know what they're doing, hauling our fish around, and they're hauling the biggest fish around. And if they happen to, get lucky and stagger into a couple big fish, right? What happens? The smallest fish come out of the tank, go back into the lake, and the biggest fish say. And like I said, you've got tournaments, high school, you got college, you got pros, you got all those tournaments consistently doing that every day, every week, couple of weeks, right? And they are, if we looked at it like a pyramid, right? We got a pyramid, and the biggest fish are up here and the small fish are down here. That's exactly what a fish population looks like, right? I've got a lot more small fish than I do big ones. But now you're taking 20 to 40% of mortality up here, and you're shaving off the top of the pyramid. See what happens? See what happens? See what happens to all your big fish? All your kicker fish? You're killing all your kicker fish. The highest mortality for the top of the pyramid. We need to invert that to get bigger fish. What do I keep saying about our pond management? What size fish do I keep saying we need to keep? 1 pound fish. We put our big fish back. We treat them very nice, right? We do all the things properly in our ponds when we catch those big fish to get them back in the water quickly and so we don't kill them. On the inverse side of that, I catch a 1 pound fish. That's fish tacos. He's in the cooler. Up to maybe 20 of them per acre per year. Once you get to that, again, we don't want to over harvest them, but we want to bump, because this is how the fish population is going to set itself up. We want to shave down here, not up here. It's common sense, boys. It's a real good point, Arkansas. You're shearing off the genetics as well. You got a really good, aggressive fish that grew to 6 pounds real fast, and guess what happens? It died. It didn't reproduce again. So you're shearing your again, think about that over a 30-year period, because that's how long it's been happening, longer, but at least 30. Consistently. Actually, not only consistently, but increasing significantly. Because these tournaments, I couldn't have been on the University of Georgia bass fishing team. We didn't have that. My God, would I have loved it. We would have been, we had some good fishermen in my fishery school. We'd have had a hell of a team. I think that's really cool to have college fishing and high school fishing. I mean, that to me is as cool as college football. I love me some college football. Go Dogs. 2 weeks. Can't wait. But that wasn't an option for us. You know, we didn't have those opportunities. Now kids have those opportunities, and I'm all for them. All for it. And I think I've got some kids that follow the page that do that, you know? And to clue those kids in, that's why I'm here. Hey guys, this is how we do this. You know, this is how professionals haul fish. This is what you need to do. This is the information. This is just the basic information that you need to combat ammonia poisoning and oxygen depletion and temperature shock and all the things that I never heard of watching all those fish shows all those years when I was a kid and idolizing. I can't tell you how many times I walk around places like ICAST and it's like, oh, idolize the guy. I've watched him my whole life. Yeah, I tell you what, man. When you get a fish degree, your idols will go away quick because you'll see, look how lazy this guy is. He's rich, he's famous, and he can't even read the first freaking chapter of fish physiology book. Can't even go and listen to one day's lecture from the University of Georgia or Clemson or Auburn or Illinois. Can't even put in that much effort. Just the most basic, simple, maybe I should study this because I have a responsibility to the fish and to the kids watching me fishing. Lost all my respect for those guys, every ounce of it. Arkansas, Game and Fish started a lunker. Oh, okay. Let's talk about that. Yeah, dude. Heck yeah, I think it can, man. I mean, look at Texas, you know, and I'm proud of Texas. And there's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? And again, the plain facts right in front of everyone. Oh, I'm just gonna let Mother Nature take its course. You know, oh, it's a, you know, how many times have I heard that? Oh, you know, well, I'm going to stock it and then, you know, just it manages itself. No, it doesn't. Does it look like it's managing itself in Texas? If it's managing itself, then why in the heck do they have that? It's not managing itself. It's not a natural environment. It's a man-made environment in a man-made lake, and it requires man-made maintenance to drive it to make it do that. The facts are all right in front of those guys, and it just doesn't go in. And I don't know why. Everybody's heard of Cheryl Uncle program. Everybody knows those guys are on it. And they deserve all the respect in the world and more. And thank God we have them so I can draw those parallels for people because I do it all the time. Like, I can't tell you how many millions of times I've heard, oh, you know, natural environment. No, it's not. And it's not natural in Texas. That is not natural. That is not Mother Nature. That is man-made scientific facts getting it done. Man-made fisheries, man-made fish populations, man-made stocking strategies, man-made genetic manipulation, all done by us. There ain't nothing that Mother Nature has to do about that, right? So absolutely, I think they can, man. Absolutely, I think they can do that. And I'm glad to see it, and I'm there with it. I'll promote it, you know. So Hooking Up says he had a places he fishes had an 11 pounder. Oh yeah, man. I mean, think about that. Up north, you got 11-pound fish. So how many years did it take to grow that? Probably not getting 2 pounds. Oh, that's him texting me right now. Probably not 2 pounds of growth a year like I'm getting. Maybe though, maybe even if it did grow 2 pounds a season, that's still a 5-year-old fish, right? That is a lot of eggs. That's a lot of breeding. That's a lot. But you also have to consider all the things you're talking about, all the competing species, all the crappie, all of the walleye, yellow perch, green sunfish, warmouth. All those different species of fish will eat bass fry. So I think, well, genetics. We could do a whole talk about genetics. How much time we got? 44 minutes. All right, we got a few minutes. Genetics is a bunch of hype. You give me some 2-inch bass out of a ditch from anywhere, just born. I can grow them. Now, will I grow them like F1s from Brian at the fish hatchery? Maybe not. Maybe that 15-inch fish doesn't go to 2 pounds in 11 months, but it'll be like 1.7, 1.8. It's not like it's going to be that much. It's not. You can grow them. And when I go back and look at all the articles and all the things about genetics, you have to remember that it's probably a fish hatchery guy paying his way into an outdoor magazine to write about this genetic nonsense to sell more fish to people. It's not really backed in science. Now, I'm seeing a lot more backed in science articles now. They've had to step their game up because of pages like this and people who know what they're talking about getting more popular. But the stuff that I used to read back in the day out of the damn outdoor magazines was an absolute joke. It literally just doesn't make it. It was just like an infomercial for a fish hatchery is really what it was, with enough science blended in to make it look legitimate. And so, like I said, man, I don't need the fancy genetics. I have that availability. They're readily available at these hatcheries now. Several of them around. You got, like I said, you got Brian and Owen Williams. You got American Sportfish over in Alabama. You got Titan Bass down in Boston, Georgia. Those are the 3 closest to me, and I don't know. I couldn't rank them as far. I've stocked all fish from all places, and I've grown great fish from all the hatcheries there. So I don't say there's one better than another one. I think if you're doing business with any one of those 3, you're in good shape. Those guys are excellent biologists at the top of their field. $10 bass over 6. It's a strong place to fish. Yeah, he's been sending some pictures of those fish, boys, and they are them nice fish. 15.8. That's a beast. Yeah, man, those fish are special when they're that big. They're really, really rare. It's a freak of nature. Yeah, GMO bass. Well, I mean, it's kind of true. It's, again, you're taking the biggest fish with the best genetics, and not only that, you're taking the fry of those, right? They're taking the eggs and they're hatching those fish out, and they're putting them there, and they're restocking them. And consider this too. Obviously, that works, and I know it works because I've done it places too. In smaller bodies of water where I'm getting my reproduction is being crushed by green sunfish or crappie usually, but I can't get rid of the lake. It's not happening. And I've just got to reintroduce bass because the bass reproduction just gets wiped out. So you've got to reintroduce bass at like the 4, 5, 6 inches. You can't put them in at 2. Stocking 2-inch fish isn't doing you any good. You got to stock them a little bit larger, like at about 4 or 5, so they can get away from the crappie, so they can then grow and then eat the crappie back for you, right? Because the crappie are getting them when they're little, but then you'll see it flip around, and if there's a lucky enough bass in the world to get it back up on top of the crappie, then they can eat the crappie. But I can promise you with 100% certainty, a pond full of stunted crappie is not a good forage base for bass. I have literally seen a pond full of tiny, smaller than my hand. Go look on my page. Any of the crappie I've posted pretty much come from the same place. My buddy Mickey's pond in Thomasville. 7-acre pond. I took a bunch of those fish, stunted out crappie, about hand size. We caught buckets and buckets and buckets of crappie trying to get them out. He caught 3,000 crappie out of it one season or 2 seasons, I think. And we at the very same time, dragging traps on the bottom, just let the rattle trap go to the bottom and then just cranking it where it's not getting off the bottom, just dragging it in the mud. The fish were down there. That little track dragging technique was working good on them. And we caught 3 fish 26 inches or longer, 26 and a half, and one in between about 26 and a quarter, but 26-inch fish that were in 7 pounds in a pond full of crappie. Right? A head with a snake, just a piece of licorice out the back. It was no weight to it whatsoever. And people are, all the time, well, that's a lot. There's a lot of good forage in there. Crappie aren't good forage for bass. There's proof of it right there. And that's just one example of many, many ponds that I've seen. Right? I don't know why that doesn't mean anything to most people. It means something to 6 people. But it doesn't mean something to the other 6 million. Good grief. All right, what else we got here, boys? Question from Frank. Holding a fish by the lip, or the scale is clamped on the lip. Okay. What size would it be possible for the fish to hurt its jaw by thrashing? Oh, yeah, just a little bit. Not even very much. I would like to see the lip scale go away completely, go back to 0 your scale, or, weigh it in the net and subtract the weight of the net, or, if you got a decent enough scale, 0 the scale. And actually, I bought a $12 scale from Walmart. I did a post about it, and a guy told me that. He's like, those scales will 0. And I was weighing the entire thing and saying, hey, just subtract the 1.5 pounds of the net or whatever, and you'll have the weight of the fish. And then a guy comes on the post and says, hey, you can 0 that. And he was right. You can actually, it's a $12 scale. Just hold it up. I would just put the scale and put the net in the water, make sure it's wet, the way everything, and then 0 it that way, and then add the fish and get the weight of the fish in the net and put it back. But yeah, the risk of busting a fish's jaw or spraining a fish's jaw is real for every fish that you lip. It's just, it gets like a logarithm. As the fish gets bigger, the chances of that happening increase. And you'll see, I've had a couple guys, that 7-8 pound fish, and the guy was putting him back into the water, and you hear it, bop, and it's strange, it was you wouldn't think the way he was doing that, it would have broke that fish's jaw, but it broke his jaw, and he was not mishandling it. The fish was not thrashing around. All he was doing was just putting it back into the water, and you heard it and saw it, pop. And he sent me the video, and he's like, did I just break that fish's jaw? I'm like, yes, you did. It's exactly what you just did. And of course, he's a wreck with it. Oh my God. And he's like, hey, it happens, but if you feel it, you hear it and feel it, bop, put him in the cooler. You're doing him a favor. He's going to starve to death. Well, they got the tiger bass, man, over at American Sportfish calls their F1s the tiger bass. So, it's a fine line. I don't know. Maybe they did. Oh, they caught it through the ice. No kidding. They caught it in the wintertime. How about that crap? Out of 140 acres. Hey, I'm not surprised, dude. Out of 140 acres. 140 acres is clean money. Absolutely. 140 acre lake will throw off a fish like that. I've seen them do it. Not many of them, but I've seen it do it. All right, let's scroll back, boys. Make sure I didn't miss anything. And see, there's proof right there. Hooking up's way up north, and they can grow some 15-pound bass up there. It's about the balance of the fishery. It's not about the length of the growing season. Sure, length of the growing season, as long as your fishery's balanced, you have a better chance of growing a bigger fish. But like the just the general consensus that I see, like, oh, it's a northern lake, like it's impossible, like you can't grow a decent fish up north. Get out of here. There's big. Look at the record books, and look at the record books, and then also look at when those records were set before catch and release, usually in a time when bass went in the cooler, and when bass went in the cooler, the bass were healthier and bigger. It's a fact. Just go look at the records. I don't know how much more data we have to put in front of everyone. You know, factual, just it's kind of how this works, boys. And because people make assumptions, they're making assumptions about all of it, and still living and dying by those assumptions. You know, hanging their hat on assumptions. With guys like me going, that 2 + 2 is always 4. Measurements don't lie. You're holding a fish saying it's healthy. I'm looking at a fish. I'm saying it's not. Who's right? How you define healthy? No. Will we see a world record in the USA? No. Forget that. Mm-mm. Too much brainwashing, too much mismanagement, too stupid of people who can't learn how to hold a fish, can't learn to adjust their tournament. I'd say the only way that happens, if it does happen, it'll probably be a lake like I don't know, O.H. Ivy drained itself down. Drought took it down, it filled back up, and now go Google anything about O.H. Ivy right now and look at the amount of 10-pound fish they're pulling out of there. That's the exact same thing. It's a new lake. It's like a reservoir with that new lake syndrome, that new lake or new pond. Whenever you stock a new pond, you'll get explosive growth because the balance is perfect. Same thing in those big lakes. I'd say if you had a chance to do it, it'll be like that, or maybe like year 5, year 6 of a new lake, but they're not building that many new lakes anymore. And once you get a decade, 2 decades in with the current system that we got with millions of fishermen who can't handle the bass properly and can't manage the bass properly, no, they'll swing to stunted. It'll all just get screwed up, and they're not going to grow a big one. They're just not. It's not going to happen. And I was talking to Homeless. He went over to Japan, the Homeless fisherman over on the G-Crack site. His goal, he's trying to, he's hunting a world record, and he's going to Iowa and Japan and all over the world looking for it. And listening to what they're talking about over there, that catch and release mentality is creeping in Japan too, and the only reason they have such big fish in Japan is because the government was making those guys kill those fish because they're not native. They're invasive fish like snakeheads or tilapia here. Should be killing them all. I can't even tell you how many people I've watched throw snakeheads back. Why? They're invasive. It makes no sense. But it's that. Well, there you go. You want to blend? I want to pull a Facebook and blend politics into this, boys. All right, I'll do it right here. You want to know when woke started? Woke started in bass fishing with catch and release. They're the woke bunch of sissies you've ever seen. I said it. Sure, Frank. And I don't take it back either. Frank, I am I'm with you on the camera and all that, dude. I have not been filming the fishing that I go and do. You like that one, Arkansas, with the woke sissies? Yeah, tournament bass fishing, a bunch of woke babies. There you go. Put that one in your pipe and smoke it, Chief. But that's exactly why Japan has 20-pound fish. They've got a high harvest. They've got a low bass population per acre in a massive, massive lake. But like I said, that whole mentality is creeping in. Like they're not keeping every bass they catch, and they're not understanding. Here's a fact that you can't really get into those guys. You're not going to catch every bass. Some bass never get caught. Never. And that's a fact. That's proven. You ain't going to catch some of them. They're not falling for it. They're too good for you. And they get away. And I don't know what percentage that is. Again, you want to have a study? There's a study I'd like to see. Never study I've never heard of. And I know from like that was way back. Dr. Gilbert was talking about that back in the day, but it's proven you were not going to catch every single fish. Not every single bass is catchable. Some are better than you. Now, just like we talk about in our ponds, you could swing the bass population down enough to where the reproduction is mopped up, and you can get eradicate a bass population that way. But in 100,000-acre lake, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if you're going to get them all out. I'm talking about a pond, different environment. Hooking up is new lake effect. Yeah, you're getting a lot of benefits from the drawdowns hooking up. One of the effects that you get from the drawdown that people don't think about is all of those 6, 8, 10-inch bass up to probably 1 pound, like around 12, 13-inch bass are thinned down by the larger bass when they're confined like that. All right. So it's a natural thinning down process. You're again, go back to that pyramid, right? You're allowing these fish to get on these fish for you in the drawdowns. And that's why you're seeing that. It's kind of a more of a self-balancing thing, although the drawdown's a man-made drawdown, right? So it's man manipulated in the lake level to manage the fish population. And secondarily, not secondarily, equally as important, exposing the pond bottom to the air significantly improves the water quality, significantly reduces the amount of chemicals you have to use in the lake. And then once you're not doing that anymore, you're not having to pour a bunch of chemicals into control plants, because the freezing of the pond bottom is what you're going for to kill the seeds that were laid there by the plants. All right. You're eradicating the plants at a seed level, and you're also freezing the root system and killing it there. So it's a systemic kill, not a contact kill like most of the chemicals. That's what these guys don't understand. Pond chemicals aren't systemic. They're contact, which means the root system lives. You're just burning off the top, like mowing it like a mower. It's like a chemical mower, but you're just mowing the top. The root system comes back, you mow it again. A drawdown is not that. A drawdown kills the aquatic plants and the roots when it's done, when you get lucky and do it right. Like around here, you might not see the cold freezing temperatures, but exposing the pond bottom to just a day of freezing cracks all the seeds and does a much better job of controlling all the plants. And then exposing that pond bottom to the air is causing a rotting process to go away. You're getting rid of all that detritus and all the stuff that rots in the water. It takes a longer time for it to rot underwater than it does exposed to atmospheric air. It rots very quickly outside. Under the water, it stays preserved. So all that detritus is like a sinkhole for oxygen. The more rotting, the more oxygen consumption you have out of the water, the more stress that puts on your fish when it's really hot. So you've got multiple levels of beneficial lake management going on there, and that's what's creating that, and that's a smart lake management technique. All right, so he says this year it's at 80%, last year was at 60%. Yeah, yeah. And you will see that. It does happen. And on your bigger lakes, on your drawdowns and stuff, they are more cyclic. You will see cycles um, where I think ponds tend to get a little more locked into bad balance and stay in there. Bigger lakes are more complex, and you see different cycles. And they also have the public stocking strategy to help them out, where ponds don't. And you might have a pond that sits there, 15, 20 years under poor management, and just it gets it locked into that stunted bass situation or stunted bluegill situation or stunted crappie situation or whatever. But the longer it's poorly managed, it seems to me, like, just from experience, the longer it's poorly managed, the more likely it is to be kind of locked into that bad state. All right, boys. I'm gonna go back one more time, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Mm, no world records. Got the jaw. We're over an hour again, boys. All right. I'm gonna go back to oh, we got a new comment. Let's see who's down there. Hooking up. The state allows city reservoirs to be filled from the river. Yeah, yeah. And see, that's where you'll get competing fish. You'll get variability in what comes in from the river. It reminds me of, like, I had a guy, he had an oxbow lake where every once in a while the river would come up. And for anybody who doesn't know, an oxbow, like, if you've got like how do I do this? If this is a river, right? Or if this is the river and it changes course and goes like that, right? And for whatever reason, it changes, but it leaves a little portion in the corner that used to be there. Most of the main river goes this way, and then it changes course and it leaves a little section, like a little pond off one side. That's a naturally forming lake. That's an oxbow lake. It's actually where they caught the 22-pound bass back in the day in Georgia. It was caught from an oxbow lake. So it's actually basically a river. So we can, just using our common sense, I can think back, what was it, 1934, I think. It was probably heavily harvested for food. People went down there and caught the fish and kept them to eat because it was 1934. And I don't remember how the size of it, but it was probably big enough to be it would had to have been big enough acres wise, 20 acres, 30 acres, 50 acres, whatever it was. It had to be up in that range. It had to have the acreage to produce the forage to grow a 20-pound fish. It's really hard to grow bass. I had a conversation about a kid. He had like a koi pond he's trying to hold bass in, or grow bass in, is what he was saying. It was like, well, I've got a 5,000 gallon. And I'm like, no, man. Um, you're not understanding this. You need, like, once it drops under an acre of water, you're in a tough spot to grow a bass. It's like trying to keep cows alive in your yard. You don't have enough grass. You need an acre of grass per cow, right? And you need an acre of forage availability per 30 or 40 bass, right? You can't, and the smaller it gets, the harder it gets, because you just literally don't have the forage. It can't produce enough forage to grow a fish that size. It has to be a certain size. And it's really, really difficult to grow a huge fish in a small pond. It'll tend to dominate it. and eat everything in it, because that's what they do. All right, boys. I think I'm going to wrap it up there, unless there's any more questions. That was a good one. Appreciate you guys coming through again. And well, hopefully I'll be back on with tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow, so I'll come back on tomorrow night about 8, and we'll do it again. Thanks, and talk to you later.